Hello everyone, my name is Adam Livingston and I am your number one source for Bitcoin and Bitcoin Treasury company analysis. Today I am here to tell you that sports gambling is a fiat death ritual and Bitcoin is your salvation. Remember kids, this is not financial advice, this is financial entertainment. But today we're going to break down the mathematical reality that you are an idiot if you gamble on sports. And you likely have the IQ of a mole rat. We're going to talk a lot about why you can just buy Bitcoin and stock in Bitcoin Treasury companies so you can retire your bloodline instead of wasting your gas money to get to work by betting on the Colts by 13. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the greatest show on earth, The American Decline. Sponsored by FanDuel, powered by Pfizer, and broadcast in 4K by a man in debt yelling at the TV because his kicker missed a 53-yarder in week 2. Let's start with the raw numbers, the body count. In 2023, Americans lost over $100 billion gambling. You heard that right. That's more than the GDP of Ecuador burned in a ritual sacrifice to the gods of parlays, teasers, and same-game degeneracy. And most of that wasn't blackjack, it wasn't poker, it was sports gambling, the male version of a lottery scratch ticket. Except now it's got live odds, dynamic pricing, and AI-powered dopamine traps engineered to hit your limbic system harder than fentanyl at Burning Man. 45 million people placed a sports bet last year. That's not a market. That's a national psychosis. That's a cope with a user interface. Average return on investment, negative 47%. You'd have better odds blindfolding yourself and throwing darts at crypto tickers in a wind tunnel. But no, these guys are convinced that their gut instinct about a backup tight end's red zone usage is gonna pay the rent. Brother, your gut also told you that Taco Bell at 2 a.m. was a good idea. You need help. And here's the real punchline. 1 in 5 frequent bettors now show signs of clinical gambling addiction. That's not a weekend hobby, that's a mass behavioral disorder with corporate sponsorship. Meanwhile, over the same period, Bitcoin returned 71%. But instead of buying the hardest monetary asset on earth, you'd bet $87 on Jalen Hurts rushing for 50-plus yards because some guy on TikTok called it a lock. Let's call it what it is, a slow-motion self-execution performed with a DraftKings app and a Mountain Dew Code Red. This is fiat clown world degeneracy at scale. It's not a fun little risk. It's a state-sanctioned financial meat grinder. The real tragedy, they don't even want the money. They want the rush, the flicker of hope. Because in a society that has robbed men of purpose, dignity, land, testosterone, and time, a 6-leg parlay is the closest thing they have to transcendence. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an obituary, and it only gets worse from here. Let's talk about who's actually placing these bets. It's not some Vegas high roller in a penthouse popping champagne with models. It's Dave from Indiana. He's 37. His wife left last year. His rent went up 40%, his testosterone dropped 30%, and he's got $128.52 in his checking account. But he just YOLO'd $50 on a plus 900 parlay because Joe Burrow's due. We are witnessing the full collapse of the American male psyche, and DraftKings is just the latest predator feeding on the corpse. This isn't gambling, it's a coping mechanism wrapped in sports ball aesthetics. The median male income today is flat since 1978. You've been financially neutered by design, but here, have a dopamine pellets, place your little bet. Feel alive again. Forget that your dad owned land and you own a DoorDash account and an ergonomic mousepad. DraftKings is a synthetic substitute for purpose. It lets you pretend you're part of something, just one leg away, baby. But you're not in the arena, you're not even in the stands, you're the janitor betting on which gladiator dies first. And here's the kicker, literally, the average DraftKings user loses $700 per year. That's not discretionary income, that's child support, insulin, or rent, but it's easier to justify when it's wrapped in tribalism and ESPN statistics. The saddest part, men don't even call it an addiction, they call it strategy. They wear jerseys like medieval peasants wore feudal lord sigils. They think they're playing a game, they are the game. Meanwhile, the algorithms know exactly how to milk them, real-time odds shift, in-app nudges, personalized promos. It's behavioral engineering. This is Pavlov with a bankroll and a customer acquisition funnel. And when the last leg misses again, what does Dave do? He reloads. He tweets, So close. And then he goes back to his one-bedroom apartment with 6 unopened crypto wallets he forgot the seed phrases to. Because here's the truth, most of these men don't want to win. They want to lose with style. They want to feel something, to die with the illusion of agency. DraftKings sells that feeling wholesale. This is the new Mayo lottery. You used to play Powerball to escape the trailer park. Now you bet the under on total receiving yards to feel like a warrior. But there are no winners, just slow-motion suicides with promo codes, and the house loves every second of it. Let's stop pretending this is accidental. Degeneracy isn't just a side effect, it's the product. The entire fiat financial system is a monetary pressure cooker and you're the steam valve. Ask yourself, why are gambling ads everywhere? Why is every podcast host now whispering, use promo code LOSER20 for a free bet up to $200? Because the fiat system is collapsing and someone has to absorb the blow, and that someone is you. Inflation is eating your paycheck alive. The dollar loses 15 to 20% of its purchasing power every 4 years, so you can't save, you can't build wealth, and by the time you've scraped together a few bucks, the system whispers, why not bet it? You're not gonna own a house. At least this way you might get a dopamine spike. Gambling is the last fantasy of upward mobility for the fiat class. It's designed to simulate hope just long enough to keep you pacified. Not too happy, not too angry, just distracted, just drained. This isn't capitalism, this is the financial Hunger Games, and the odds are never in your favor because they're not meant to be. Meanwhile, the government gets their cut, states tax your losses, they run their own lotteries, the official poverty extraction programs, they legalize sports betting because it boosts economic activity, which is code for more ways to siphon despair and monetize it. You are not the customer, you are the liquidity event. Fiat money enables this because fiat is fake. It's printed, devalued, and weaponized to turn your attention span into a revenue stream. When money has no anchor, society has no compass, what do you get when you detach human behavior from time, value, and consequence? You get a nation of dopamine zombies gambling away their dignity $50 at a time. This isn't entertainment, it's state-approved ritual humiliation. Because in a fiat system, there's only one rule: the machine must eat. And if it can't eat your savings, it'll eat your attention, your hope, your last shred of agency, and it'll call it sports. Let me break the illusion once and for all. You are not a competitor, you are inventory. You think you're outsmarting the house. My brother in Christ, you are the house's product. Let's do the math. DraftKings pulled $1.1 billion in revenue last quarter alone. Not gross wagers, pure predatory margins scraped directly from the psychic wounds of working class men chasing a plus 230 payout like it's a divine calling. These companies don't hope you lose, they've modeled your loss. You are a predictive input in a high-frequency revenue engine. They use AI to track your betting habits. They monitor when you bet, how much you bet, and how desperate you're getting. Then they tailor push notifications at 7:13 p.m. just when your will to live dips below your caffeine level. Boosted odds on tonight's game, one more chance, king, with a crown emoji. No, Dave, that's not opportunity, that's an algorithm licking its lips. Every single feature on these platforms, cash out early, bet suggestions, same game parlays, is engineered not to help you win, but to amplify how predictably and frequently you lose. It's just profitable behavioral architecture. And the worst part, they call it engagement. You don't win, you engage like a lab rat engaging with the cheese lover. Now compare that with Bitcoin. When you buy BTC on an exchange, it doesn't root for you to lose. It doesn't send push notifications at 2 a.m. with urgent, short the halving. It sits there, immutable, uncaring, perfectly fair. Because the Bitcoin protocol doesn't want your soul, it just wants your discipline. But DraftKings wants your entire psyche turned into a subscription. They don't care who wins the game. They just want you logged in every single day, bleeding value like a wounded NPC in a casino dungeon. And while you think you're one smart pick away from turning it all around, the house is already celebrating your funeral with quarterly earnings champagne. Because Vegas always wins, and now Vegas is on your phone. At this point, it's not even about money, it's how you relate to time, reality, and pain. Let's be brutally honest, there are two kinds of men in the world. Not left versus right, but degenerates versus disciplined. One wakes up, scrolls ESPN, and bets $50 he can't afford on a 6-leg parlay because I got a feeling. The other wakes up, buys Bitcoin, logs off, and goes to war against entropy. Let me show you what this looks like. ROI, minus 40% average over time for the degenerate sports gambler. Disciplined Bitcoiner, plus 200% compound annual growth rate since 2020. Strategy, emotion plus gut picks versus protocol and conviction. The time horizon of a parlay addict may be 48 hours at absolute best. The Bitcoin maximalist, 4 halving cycles, 16 years minimum. The outcome, dust versus sovereignty. The Bitcoiner buys volatility as a strategy. The gambler needs action. The Bitcoiner needs discipline. The gambler says, just one more leg and I'm free. The Bitcoiner says, just one more halving and I'll never obey again. One is trying to beat a rigged system. The other is building a new one. When you gamble on sports, you're not participating in capitalism. You're donating to a hopium industrial complex. You are quite literally a liquidity provider for dopamine extraction algorithms. Meanwhile, Bitcoiners are acquiring digital land on a finite monetary planet, and they're doing it every time you reload $25 into your FanDuel wallet. This is the divide not between rich and poor, but between those who allocate capital like clowns and those who allocate capital like exiled kings preparing for the return. You don't need another sports bet, you need a monetary exorcism, because this isn't just about wealth, this is about which timeline you want to live in. Do you want to ride shotgun in clown world praying your kicker hits a 58-yarder? Or do you want to front-run global monetary recalibration and ride the asymmetry curve into sovereignty? Choose wisely, one road ends in dust. The other ends in Bitcoin per share. Let's flip the script because for the first time in financial history, there is a bet with no casino. No pit boss, no dealer, no house edge, just open source code, hard math, and the cold steel of a 21 million supply cap. Bitcoin is the anti-bet. It looks like a bet to the fiat-addled brain, volatile, unpredictable, risky, but zoom out, it's the only asset in the world with a structurally positive expected value and no counterparty risk. Let me put this in gambler terms. Sports betting is betting on players you don't know, in games you don't control, with odds set by people who know more than you ever will. Bitcoin is betting on math, thermodynamics, the collapsing credibility of every fiat regime on Earth, and the fact that central banks print like meth heads with access to unlimited toner. In other words, Bitcoin is a one-way asymmetric bet on global financial entropy. The max downside, it goes to zero. Spoiler, it won't. You'd have to roll back the internet. The upside, it becomes the monetary base layer of a post-fiat world. That's not a risk, that's a time-leveraged escape hatch from a burning building. Meanwhile, what's your parlay's upside? You turn $50 into $380 and lose it all next week on a Sunday night teaser with the Bears? The average Bitcoin hodler over any 4-year period in profit. The average parlay bettor any 4-week period broke, angry, and emotionally estranged from his children. Let me make this brutally simple. Bitcoin is the only asymmetric bet on Earth where the rules can't be changed mid-game. No referee, no rigging, no rake, just you, your private keys, and your willingness to wait. It is the final boss of capital allocation, and all you had to do was buy some and shut up. But you choose to bet on the Raiders secondary instead. Let me introduce to you a terrifying species of human, the Bitcoin Treasury CEO. These are not investors. These are capital allocators who looked into the abyss of fiat collapse and said, we'll take it all. While you were betting $100 that Mac Jones would throw 2+ touchdowns, Michael Saylor was issuing convertible notes, buying thousands of Bitcoin and turning Strategy into a cybernetic vault. Let's talk numbers. Strategy holds 592,000 Bitcoin. That's $63 billion at current prices. That's right. After the multiple it's trading at now, Saylor turned a $500 million investment into a $107 billion company in less than 5 years. Metaplanet, the Japanese Bitcoin beast, is turning a deflationary debt trap into a leveraged BTC black hole. They buy Bitcoin like Japan's entire GDP is a temporary inconvenience. Nakamoto's BTC per share metrics are climbing like a face-melting mountain goat on crystal meth. These companies are not gambling, they're executing asymmetric time value arbitrage at institutional scale. They don't chase yield, they become the yield. Strategy doesn't buy Bitcoin as a hedge, it buys it because it knows everything else is dying. It's not bullish, it's post-apocalyptic. And you can take advantage of this, but you're too poor because you keep wasting your money watching more masculine grown men play a game with a ball. This is what capital discipline looks like in the 21st century. They borrow at 1% or less to buy BTC, watch fiat melt, and let the MNAV do the talking. Meanwhile, you're out here emotionally hedging your loneliness with $35 same-game parlays like a medieval peasant praying to the god of boosted odds. You could have bought stock in the companies that own the casino. Instead, you bet on OBJ's yards after contact. The treasury companies aren't playing the game, they bought the scoreboard. Let me make this as intimate as possible. Let's talk about you. Not the market, not the system, you. Because you had the chance. August 2020, you could have bought MicroStrategy stock. Same month, you bought the $250 NFL Sunday ticket package. Same week, you bet on the Cowboys season opener with a $50 teaser that hit 5 legs and died on the 6th when Dak got turf toe. You could have taken that $250 and bought into the most savage capital allocator of the 21st century. You could have owned a piece of a Bitcoin vault disguised as a software company, but you didn't. You bet over a preseason game. Then MSTR went up over 3,000% in under 5 years. And you're still chasing that one parlay to rule them all. Let me spell it out. You could have owned the casino. You could have owned the Bitcoin inside the casino. Hell, you could have owned the company that owns the company that owns the Bitcoin inside the casino. Instead, you bet $85 that Baker Mayfield would throw 2 touchdowns in the snow. You're not unlucky, you're fiat-brained. You've been trained to think in bets, not in ownership. Because the system doesn't want you thinking like a capitalist, it wants you thinking like a junkie who believes hope can be parlayed. Bitcoiners aren't playing your game, they're building the scoreboard you cry in front of. You are the liquidity, they are the vault. And the worst part, they're not even mad at you. They're front-running your collapse like it's a weather forecast. They see your DraftKings app and buy more stock. You gamble to feel like a king. They accumulate because they already know how the story ends. Let's stop pretending this is a debate between 2 financial strategies. This is a war between 2 worldviews. On one side, you have DraftKings, FanDuel, ESPN Bet, the entire Hope industrial complex, a weaponized dopamine casino engineered to monetize male despair. They sell fantasy of control to people who have none. They offer cheap euphoria in exchange for quiet servitude. On the other side, Bitcoin, a brutal, uncompromising, zero-yield rock in cyberspace that doesn't care about your feelings, your team, your parlays, or your excuses. It just sits there stacked block by block like a monetary ark waiting for the fiat flood. Here's the truth, DraftKings doesn't want you to win, it wants you distracted, drained, and docile. It's a digital pacifier, a hope slot machine wrapped in the illusion of skill. Bitcoin doesn't want you happy, it wants you free, and freedom has a price. Conviction, discipline, time preference. But you know what it doesn't require? Luck. You don't need a parlay to hit, you need one wallet and enough backbone not to sell. You think you're just betting a few bucks for fun? You're betting your future against a rigged system. And it's not even hiding anymore. DraftKings gives you hope, Bitcoin gives you an exit. And when this whole fiat circus collapses, when the dollar is a digital panopticon software, when the CBDC controls your caloric intake, and your betting limits are set by your social credit score, Bitcoin will still be there, untouched, uncensored, unbothered. So ask yourself, do you want to be the guy who bet $100 on the Dolphins to cover the spread? Or the guy who bought the hardest asset in human history and told the fiat casino to go to hell? Because this isn't just a chart, this is your life. And the final score? You choose it. My name is Adam Livingston. If you enjoyed this content, please share this video to wake up the normies from fiat hell. Like this video to help the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you'd like to hear next. Class dismissed.